Hello to all those watching online. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Thank you for your patience. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. My name is John, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here, of course, in Treaty 1 territory. The land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Nunawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. It's always a pleasure to welcome people to a book launch. It's a particular pleasure when it's a first book, so that adds a particular element of pleasure to the evening. It's also very intimidating to put together a celebration for someone who is known for their celebrations. So please do bear with me over the course of this evening. I'm so happy you're all here. We, of course, gathered here to celebrate Gather Together, delightful decor and simple recipes for every occasion by Robyn Chubey. We're so very grateful to Rockpoint Books for publishing this book and for making this evening a reality. To give you a sense quickly of how the evening will proceed, Robyn will be introduced in a moment and will then present from this podium. After that, there'll be an opportunity for you all to ask questions, so please do let those percolate over the course of the presentation. When it comes time for the questions, I'll circulate with this handheld microphone in a non-intimidating fashion, just to ensure that everybody watching at home can hear your questions. I'll be back at the end to go over sign-in procedure, but for now, I have the great pleasure of calling up somebody to offer an introduction for Robyn, an expert in all things Robyn Chubey, her husband, Dan.
What a soothing voice. I feel like John's told a story or two here. My name is Dan, and as John said, I'm Robyn's husband, but also the laborer at Prairie Glow Acres, and the president and founding member of the Robyn Chubey fan club. These roles have provided me a unique front row seat for nearly 2 decades to the passion, creativity, talent, and authenticity that Robyn brings to her content creation day in and day out. Robyn's talents almost sound hyperbolic. She's a professional photographer who can capture the perfect image no matter how challenging the subject, husbands included. A crafty design DIYer with projects ranging from wainscoting to bathrooms with a traditional, transitional, and English-French country style. Side note, I don't really know what that means, but our house looks incredible. She's a master gardener who prepares, plants, and harvests nearly 70 gardens every year and uses that harvest in her expertly crafted cooking and scrumptious baking, and most recently, added chicken farmer to her list with what I'll describe very begrudgingly as a growing flock. I will say, she called it, those little cluckers are growing on me. There aren't enough superlatives to appropriately articulate Robyn's skill set and talent. She isn't just a photographer, a gardener, chicken lady, or content creator. She's a storyteller. Through her stories, she invites her engaged followers into a world where slowing down matters, where gathering is intentional, and where everyday moments become meaningful memories delivered in her uniquely authentic and approachable way. From building Prairie Glow Acres into a space that blends creativity, family, and nature, to sharing her passion with thousands through her platforms, Robyn has created more than a brand. She's built a community centered around connection and beauty in the everyday. What excites me most is that more and more over the last few years, those in Winnipeg, Canada, and her followers around the world are becoming more acquainted with the incredible talent I've borne witness the last 18 years. Which leads us to the here and now. With her debut book, Gather Together, she brings that same warmth, creativity, and inspiration into your homes in a whole new way. We now add best-selling author to her seemingly never-ending list of accomplishments. Fun fact, she is currently #1 in the holiday craft bestsellers list on Amazon, ahead of Reba McEntire and Elvira's Cookbook from Hell. You can fact check that. Please join me in welcoming the incomparable and incredible, the author of Gather Together, Life of Glow herself, Robyn Chubey.
Quick introduction. Thank you, Dan. He asked me if I wanted him to read that to me earlier, and I'm really glad I said no, because I probably wouldn't have been okay with that many compliments, but thanks, I appreciate it. Diving into this book, I want to just start by saying when I was first approached to write a book, first of all, I was overwhelmed. It has been a really long time dream of mine. I had on my vision board back when I was 20 years old. I wanted to write a book. I did not know what kind of book I wanted to write. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be about, but I knew a book was always going to be on my horizon. And so when my publisher approached me to do this, they really wanted me to write a cookbook. And I said, I don't think I can just write a cookbook. Like, I don't think that I'm capable of just doing recipes on their own. I think it's going to need to be more. I'm going to have some gardening elements, some crafting elements. And so together we worked on creating an outline for a book that would make sense for me. And Gather Together was that book for the first, and hopefully more. But yeah, so in this book, really what I wanted to do is find a way to bring the reader on a whole year's worth of really cool recipes, crafts, and gift ideas for gathering together and getting together with people and just connecting with your loved ones throughout the whole year. And so I'm going to dive in here to the book, because one thing, when you're writing a book, especially if you're wordy like I am, there's a lot more writing that goes into your first submission than what actually makes it into the book. So I remember my publisher, my editor coming back to me and saying, I had thousands of extra words, thousands. I'd written way more than what could be all included in the book. So one thing that didn't really make it in, which I actually like because I can talk about it all the time now, is the fact that each one of the sections, so let's say we're starting at Easter, which is in the spring, I have a lot of connecting elements throughout all of the ingredients for the recipes, and just a way that it can all go together. So for instance, in Easter, there's going to be some of my favorite rhubarb cupcakes, or rhubarb muffins, and then there's a rhubarb cocktail. So you can kind of use one ingredient in multiple ways and tie them all together. And so even in the imagery in the book, if you look through each section, the flowers to the tablescapes to how the flowers and florals that are edible are being used within the recipes, they all sort of work together to make it an easier hosting experience and to make use of all those ingredients and all of those elements in more than one way, which just, when you're hosting, that's just such a major thing, is to make things simpler and to reduce waste. So I know a lot of cookbooks that I've looked at previously have had multiple different crazy recipes that if you were to look at all of those ingredients and all of that shopping list and everything together, it's a little bit overwhelming. So I really wanted to make sure for this book that things didn't feel so overwhelming. Now would love to go through the book. I have got one of my copies here. And as you can see, I have many Post-it notes attached to them. So I just wanted to go through and kind of walk through the book in all of what my favorites are. So if you are going through this book on your own at home, I just want to talk a little bit about what my favorite things were, favorite recipes, and the things that my family really loves as well. So I'm going to kick it off with the tablescapes. So tablescapes were a big element in every single section of the book. Some of them are a little bit elaborate, some of them are less elaborate, and I just wanted to make it feel accessible as well as giving a lot of inspiration. So some of them might seem really over the top, but you can always pull smaller elements from each one of those photos and all of the elements that are together. So starting with this one here, this in the Building a Tablescape collection. This tablescape that I had put together was all vegetables and florals. So there's literally nothing in the middle of the tablescape that I didn't pull out of my garden. Even if you don't have a garden, this is such an easy tablescape to put together because you can actually eat all of the elements that are on that table after you're done hosting your event, which is a really great way to be sustainable. It's a really great way to save money. On this one here, I had everything from zucchinis to cabbages to some carrots. You could easily visit a farmer's market and put something together like this that you host your event at, and the following day and the following week you feed your family with, which is just really a cool idea, especially as we're, looking at the price of groceries and everything. It's nice to have things do double duties. Moving along, in Manitoba, we have the most amazing lilacs that grow here. You can forage these, people have them in their yards. There are bushes literally everywhere, and they are a really gorgeous flower to bring into your home and to use in your cooking. So in the book here, I've got recipes for the lilac sugar. I've got recipes for lilac syrup, which are really beautiful things you can make with your lilacs. I like to pick them fresh, keep them for a couple of days, and then use the recipes that I love to transform them into something that you can enjoy and eat as well afterwards. So speaking of lilacs, if you want to go and harvest lilacs from the outdoors, they're kind of tricky because if you just chop them and you plop them into water, they're probably not going to last longer than maybe a day or so. And so to keep your lilacs looking really fresh for the longest amount of time possible, when you're snipping them, take some of the woody area, and there's two different ways. In the book here, I speak about snipping with your snips up the where the woody areas are. You can cut into them, make a series of snips, or in a large snip down the center. And this way, when you put it into water, it's going to uptake water from your vase, and they're going to last a lot longer. If you want to keep that sort of going over the next couple of days, if you snip them again and create another little series of small snips, that'll work really well as well. You can also take a hammer and hit the stems so it kind of breaks up all of the woody, it's kind of like a bark around the stems, and then that will work as well. So lilacs are amazing. That was one of the ones I wanted to share because I have it here for Mother's Day brunch. And unfortunately here, it's probably going to be more like a Father's Day brunch for when the lilacs are blooming. But they're just so beautiful and they smell so lovely. And it's just one of the things that I feel like marks real spring happening here in Manitoba. And so I wanted to include them. Next, I am talking about garden table settings, alfresco dining. We do not have long enough summers here, so I think any opportunity that we can get to sit outside and enjoy the outdoors is just something that we cannot pass up. So in the alfresco dining section, the tablescape that I have here, I kept it pretty simple because if you're outdoors and you have the beauty of your own garden or the trees around you or any sort of beautiful landscape, you don't need to go wild and crazy on your table decor. Sometimes it's just best to let nature speak for itself. So I kept this one a little bit more simple. I just had some garden flowers that I put on the table. I'd use blues in it because when you're outside, sometimes it's best not to compete with nature for the colors and so I just kind of tied in the sky to that one. For the alfresco dining section, I really wanted to use all of the recipes and elements that work really well outside. So when I talk about the book being thoughtful in the way that I've included recipes, this is one where I really felt like that hits all of the right markers. So from the picnic in the sun, where I have some really beautiful, it's kind of like the meringues here that are, let's see, I'm gonna go through here and pull it up. I've got, oh, I skipped ahead here. I've got from salsas to the grissini breadsticks to the, forgetting the word for them. Anyways, they're kind of like a large meringue, and I can't remember the name now for some reason, it's escaping me, but you have all of the fruits and just elements that you can use that won't matter if they sit outside long term. So if you got a salsa and you have a pasta salad and you have grissini breadsticks and you have fruits, that's all something that you can set outside on your table, and you're not going to have to worry about keeping things hot for your guests. So all the way through the book, that kind of same, that same thoughtfulness goes through each one of the sections. On to Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving is one that I really adore. I have collected cornucopias over the course of many, many months, thrifting. Every time I saw one, I would buy it and bring it home and add it to my box of cornucopias, which my husband was wondering why I have so many cornucopias in an entire box in our garage. But being able to put an entire collection onto your table is just one way to find a really economical and sustainable way by thrifting, creating a little collection. It could be a collection of vases. It could be a collection of cornucopias. It could be a little collection of figurines. If you like to have anything that you like to collect, to take that and display that down the center of a table is just a really wonderful way to make another use for the things that you already have, or to create something impactful without spending a lot of money. So if you're ever hosting a gathering, go out to a thrift store and collect, a bunch of little teacups and what have you, and stack them up. Just any sort of collection really works. Multiple items just have a great impact. So that was one of the ones where that really came together for me. And then finally for tablescapes, the one I wanted to talk about is my Christmas tablescape. So this one here has a lot of pattern, and I think that over the last few years, so maybe 10 years, patterns were really out and color was out. It was a lot of layering beiges and creams and keeping things really neutral. And over the past maybe year or two, color and pattern have really been starting to come to the forefront again. And that can be something tricky because it's easier to layer a bunch of neutral items and have it look good than it is to play with color. So I wanted to do something that was really wild and a little bit punchy and just show that repeating elements. So having a really busy tablecloth with, a matching napkin, the pops of red, having that all kind of work together, you can create something that's really cozy and feels really just welcoming and really festive. So the similar way that you could do that, let's say for Easter, would be to have, Easter egg tablecloth, Easter egg napkins, and then pull colors from there to create your centerpiece, so that it doesn't always have to be something really elegant and really subdued or neutral, which I think a lot of people got really safe doing. And it's fun to experiment. And when I think back to being a kid, especially if you're a parent with kids, it wasn't, the elegant, really fancy neutral things that wowed me as a child. It was always, seeing something that was bold and colorful and fun that has an impact on, your memory and what looks like it's a really good time when you're a kid. And so I wanted to share that. So that was Christmas part one. And then Christmas part two was again a little bit more of just a pared down, really earthy kind of vibe. And again, I used pattern plates. I had bought these years and years ago with my dad, actually I was out shopping and they were on sale, and he said, you should just buy them. And I went, oh, I don't know how much I'm going to use them. And honestly, I've pulled those dishes out every year at Christmas now, which is really, really fun. So building a tablescape collection is one of the first sections in the book. And it's one that I think is really important because in that section, I talk about how I've put together my collection, how I've been kind of adding to it throughout all of the years. A lot of it is thrifted. A lot of it was bought on sale. Nothing is too precious. And so once you have a bunch of stuff ready, it makes it a lot easier to host, and it makes it a lot more fun to get ready, which kind of also circles back to being asked to do this book. If I had not been kind of ready with all of these things I had been collecting over so many years, it would have been really impossible to put this all together because there was a lot of stuff. So all of those collections came in handy. Which, you know, when you're collecting that many different things, you have to make a use for them or else someone's gonna ask you to get rid of them eventually. Okay, so moving on to the recipes. Once I had all of the sections kind of ready to go for my publisher, and I didn't want to just do holidays. I didn't want to have just Mother's Day and Father's Day and, you know, all the big ones. I wanted to have other just reasons to gather. So in the book, there's a family games night with really easy recipes. I'm going to kind of touch on a few of those here, and all of the kind of in-between things, because big gatherings are great, the ones that everyone sort of feels expected to, you know, attend with their families or with their friends. But I do believe that it's the moments that you're gathering in between with, you know, couple friends, or you have your kids' friends come over, and just putting together a little something to make it special is just really important. And those are the kind of connecting moments that make it really special, all the seasons in between the crazy seasons really special. So with that said, I'm going to dive into going through my favorite recipes. So if you have bought the book and you are wondering which recipes are my go-to recipes, these are the ones that we make year after year and season after season, and in between all those seasons as well. So starting off, I'm going to share these rhubarb coffee cake streusel muffins. Rhubarb is, I feel like it's one of those things, it's kind of polarizing. People either love rhubarb or they don't love rhubarb. And these muffins these are some muffins that I feel like change everybody into a rhubarb lover. They are so wonderful, they're so delicious. They have a streusel topping on them, and who doesn't like streusel? I mean, it's pretty much the epitome of great muffin is a streusel top. Even my husband, who doesn't like rhubarb, loves these muffins. The other thing is they're a coffee cake. So, I mean, sometimes muffins are a little bit dry, and I love a coffee cake because it's moist and it has like a lot of depth and flavor, and you don't need to add butter to it, and you don't need to warm them up. And that is this muffin. So if you're looking for a fantastic way to use rhubarb when you're going, oh my gosh, I just got given this rhubarb and my neighbor has some rhubarb, you know what you're going to do with it. This is one thing that I would definitely try. They're some of our faves, and then we make them all the time. Next in the Easter section, I have these mustard caviar egg bites. So this page is a little tricky. I wanted to have two of these, like the two recipes, the mustard caviar, go together on this page, but my publisher wanted it to be part of a giftable item for another section. So it's a little sneaky. In here it'll say to go to page 205. So I'm just flip ahead to page 205 so I can find that mustard caviar and show those to you. So I'm going to talk about these deviled eggs for a bit because everybody loves deviled eggs. I feel like that is an Easter staple. The mustard caviar on page 205 is here. And if you ever tried those, there's a mustard that's sold in the stores and it's got the full little mustard kernels in it. It's Smack Dab, I think it's called. I love Smack Dab mustard. This is your home sort of dupe for that. This recipe took me a few tries to get it to be really perfect. And the key to doing this, and you do not want to miss out, is boiling. You put the mustard into some water and you boil it. Bring it to a boil, let it boil for 30 seconds, and then drain the water. And you repeat that process until you can taste the mustard and it doesn't have a bitter taste. So the first few times I made this, I did not do that process enough times. I think it was, the key was doing it, I think I had on here four times was perfect. And then it'll take the brine or whatever sauce you want to put it with, and it'll be just, they're so delectable. And they're with the little lids on them. They're little, beautiful little gifts. And you can do hot sauce flavor, you can do honey flavor, you can do all sorts. Skipping back to the mustard caviar egg bites. The little mustard seeds are what's on here in the corner of the eggs. And they were just such an interesting, when you bite into it, to have the little popping mustard deliciousness. So, so good. The other thing I want to say, if you make deviled eggs, this way of making them is so much easier than trying to scoop your filling and put it back into the yolks. It just piping them from a piping bag, and you can do that by cutting off the corner of a Ziploc bag. You can do it by using piping tip. I obviously used a piping tip here because it looks so pretty. It is just so much easier and so much faster to go through your eggs and pipe that back in once you have all of your eggs mixed up with your flavors that you like. The other thing I want to say is the eggs themselves, instead of cutting them lengthwise, the way people typically cut their deviled eggs, these are all cut through the center, and then a little bit of the egg is cut off of the bottom so that they can sit face up. Now, these ones, I did them a little bit deeper. So what you can actually do is cut the tops off your eggs. And then in one of the next recipes to come here, which are the scones, which I'm absolutely in love with, you can actually take all of the remnants from your eggs, chop them up real fine, and include them in your scones, and then you can have a ham and cheese and egg scone, which is a really great addition as well. So again, just reusing all of the discard and all the different things that you are going to be incorporating. This one here has the bacon and the chive, and then the chives are used again in the scone recipes. So that's kind of remembering that, using the elements again and again. Okay, quiche. I love a good quiche, but one thing I always find with quiche is that sometimes I feel that the egg to the crust ratio is just not quite right. So in this recipe here, this giant pie plate is from IKEA, and it's a little bit shallower. And so my big tip for this recipe here is to use a bigger pie plate, because then you have less egg to have to cook through to make your quiche. And then the crust to egg ratio, I feel, is just that much better, and you don't have to worry about it over baking or being unable to get it out of the pan, which I find that that's something that people struggle with quiche as well, is when they're making it, the bottom gets kind of soggy, or you can't get it out of the pan and you have to use a springform pan. And this completely solves that problem, because it's not so deep that it needs to be so cooked through to the middle. For the asparagus, it kind of looks like a little garden, and I just really love the way that looked. I kept long pieces, and then I used additional asparagus pieces layered underneath, that'll be all explained in the recipe, and that keeps them floating on the top. So you could also use this exact same method to raise up anything. If you have little, cherry tomatoes or anything else that you wanted to put into your quiche, putting the asparagus underneath will hold them up so that when it bakes, they stay on the top. That's what creates this beautiful little vignette on the top of the quiche. All right, moving along. The butternut squash enchiladas are absolutely delicious, and these are ones that our family eats at least every month. I make this at least once a month for the kids. I've made it for my kids' friends. It sounds sort of obscure to have butternut squash in an enchilada, but to be honest, it's so flavorful, and it takes on all of the chili powder and chili peppers and the cumin, and just all of the flavors just really soak into it really beautifully. And so you cook it up first, like your butternut squash, and you brown it a little so you get that beautiful caramelization on it, and it's very sweet and lovely. And then you put all of the spices and flavors of Mexican into it, and it just makes the most incredible enchiladas. So that is one that we eat all the time. If I could probably just say try one recipe out of this book, it would be that one, which is great because squash is also really inexpensive at the grocery store. You can grow it in the garden very easily here. It lasts all year long in your cold storage. The recipe for the flour tortillas that I made for these is just on the page before. Traditional tortillas, if you make them with cornmeal, they're really, really difficult to roll out. And even these flour tortillas can be really difficult to roll out. But this recipe here is just so easy. It rolls out beautifully. As long as you let the dough rest, you can get them really, really thin. And my kids absolutely adore these. So those two together are wonderful. And if you want to just buy tortillas and do the filling, that works as well. This filling also afterwards can be used. You can do it as a chili. You can use it in the morning, any leftovers you have from the filling of the enchiladas. Put them with eggs over top of a tortilla, do a little ranchos huevos. It's delicious. So that's a big fave. Then the chimichurri sauce. Dan and I always loved chimichurri. Everyone loves a chimichurri. We had gone to Minneapolis and we went to this really wonderful restaurant and they had homemade chimichurri sauce that you could buy in these little dishes. And when I tasted that chimichurri sauce, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. What is that flavor? It's different. Like it's not the same as chimichurri I'm used to. And I sat there thinking, because I knew the chef was probably going to give me the recipe. So eventually I was like, it's apple cider vinegar. That's what I'm tasting. It was a very unique sort of flavor in there. And then I asked the waitress because then I knew what it was. So I knew she couldn't tell me no. And that was their different ingredient from all the chimichurris I previously used. And once I used that instead of red wine vinegar or just the white wine vinegar, it changed the recipe so much. It is so, so delicious. We now use this, and this chimichurri sauce recipe is actually used in here for the pasta salad, but we'll do warm pasta and put that on there with Parmesan cheese and stir it all up. So, so delicious. So that is one that you can have on hand in the fridge for summer. It's fantastic on tortillas. It's fantastic over meat. It's in multiple different sides for this summer dining. Highly, highly recommend. Okay, next, marshmallows. So homemade marshmallows are one of those things that sounds like they're very difficult, like it would be difficult to do. And the first time I ever made marshmallows, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be like, it seems like it's a lot. It was so easy. Recipes like this are when it says the total time is overnight, I always feel really intimidated by that. So anything from, you know, pie crust to any recipe where you're like, hey, no, I've got to start this the day before. Now I've got to leave it. They always feel really intimidating to me. And over time, I've discovered those are some of the easiest recipes. They just sit, like that whole rest of the time is just sitting and you really aren't doing anything aside from, you know, waiting the time period for them to, you know, set or dry out. Homemade marshmallows compared to a real marshmallow on the fire, in a s'more, on a hot chocolate, in a, you name it, is like, there is no comparison. Once you have a homemade marshmallow roasting on a fire, you'll go, I don't ever want to have a regular marshmallow again. So this is one recipe that sounds intimidating. It seems like there's a lot of steps, but I promise once you actually start going through them, they're all really simple. It's all very, very simple. And you can also put these, kind of dust them with sugar. You can get your kids to help using cookie cutters. You can make them stars. You can make them hearts. You can make them any shape that you want. You can use the remnants cut up and dry them out and put them into your hot chocolate mix later. There are just so many ways to use this. And in here, I actually had 2 separate images for the book. I had gift bags that were stacked up with them, and I ended up gifting a bunch of them after doing this section, but it's a really, really wonderful gift too. So if you're looking for a great hostess gift that's it's actually very simple to make and looks really impressive, that's one that I really recommend. Which brings us to boozy hot chocolate. Marshmallows, these ones are not homemade marshmallows, they're just mini ones that I used for this picture, but those other marshmallows would be 10 million times better in this. This boozy hot chocolate is so, so delicious. If you can have this by a fire at Christmas, it is just an existential experience. There is Kahlua, there's Bailey's, then there's hot chocolate, then there's the whipped cream, the marshmallows on top, and if you have a kitchen torch or just any kind of, they have little Amazon kitchen torches, and I bought one of those. Absolutely brilliant, so great. But you can also do this using the electronic lighters that have that little invisible flame. That works perfectly for this too. So if you don't have any fancy tools, you can find those at I think they're at any dollar store or Canadian Tire, and it works really perfectly. You pile up your marshmallows on top of the drink and then give them a little scorch. So, so good. Caramel drizzle on the top and you're set. This is one for the fire pit, one for the holidays, fall, just deliciousness. Now, homemade bread bowls. I need to tell a story about this recipe. I was making this for the book, and at the end of sharing my favorite recipes, I'll talk a little bit about actually writing the book. But I was making these. I'd gotten up super early in the morning because I need to, of course, I'm shooting these in the fall and there's only limited time, daylight in the day to get like the right lighting to be able to shoot everything properly. I make them, I have them rising, they're sitting on my counter, everything is going well. I'm about 40 minutes from needing to pop them into the oven, they're finishing their rise, and the power goes out. And it says it's not gonna be turned back on for like 3 hours, and I know that that's way too much time. So I had to load my cookie sheets that had all of my bread bowls into my car. I put them on the floor with the heat blowing on them so that I could drive to my mom's house and put them into her oven and bake them, and then put them back into my car and drive them home so I could go back to where I had my set up to photograph them. So when you see this picture here, you just know like that day was absolute chaos. I can call, there she is, but calling her, I'm like, I need to come to your oven immediately. I'm on my way, running into her house with my cookie sheets, with the tea towels over top, trying not to like bump them or do anything so that they didn't deflate. But it worked out and they look so good. And these are actually mini bread bowls, the way that I've done them here, so that each person can have their own little individual bread bowl to do chili or the butternut squash soup, which is on, I believe, the next page, in the bread bowl. This, I think I shot the next morning with my bread bowls. I think I put some in the fridge and then just said that was it for that day. I think I had plans to do them both together, but then did not. They are really, really wonderful ways to serve. And because you can pre-make the bread, and because soup is also so easy, you can pre-make a soup. If you're hosting and you make these beautiful bread bowls and you make this beautiful soup all the day before, and I mean, the bread keeps in the fridge, you can just keep them in an airtight container, pop them in the fridge, pull them out, warm them up in the oven. Absolutely perfect idea to impress people without needing to be cooking crazily on the day that you're hosting. So a lot of, again, the recipes in here have that easy to make ahead. Lots of tips and tricks are in the recipes for how to store your different items. But this one's so good and so impressive looking. I mean, if I go to someone's house and they serve me that, I'm like, heck yes. And after you do the soup, you don't have to do anything crazy. I mean, you can have, you know, like a chicken and a potato, and that's beautiful, or just do the soup and eat more bread. Okay, so onto the vanilla giftable. I don't know if they actually put in here, oh, they do have it in here. Cholula hot sauce bottles. I don't know if any of you have ever had Cholula hot sauce. I am obsessed with their little bottles. And so I collect them and keep them, wash them all out, give them, you know, a good sterilization. You put them in the oven at 200 degrees and just let them sit there. Makes them really beautifully clean, and the perfect way, the perfect vessel for homemade vanilla. Homemade vanilla is, again, one of those things that if you gift this or you have it in your home, it is just so, first of all, it's a bajillion times better than imitation vanilla. Like real vanilla is just where it's at. Incredibly easy to make. You can go on Amazon and you can order Tahitian vanilla beans or the Madagascar vanilla beans. You slice your beans into threes and take 3 beans and put them into each one. So I just sort of pack this whole, like there's a tiny little hole at the top, and I feed the vanilla into them, leaving at the top of the vanilla, you can have it pretty skinny because it kind of goes skinny to big. So I like that little skinny piece because I'll talk about the next part in a sec. But you fill this up with your vanilla beans, and then you fill this up with alcohol. You can do rum, you can do brandy, you can do, I think of what have I got in here? Bourbon, vodka, brandy. I always use rum. I think I did this one with a dark rum. And you let it sit for about 6 months. So if you do this in the summertime, like we're even coming on to like a great time right now, you can use any bottles or any vessels that you want. Obviously, there's like, it'll be for 150 mLs, which is perfect for this bottle. But any small bottle will do, or even a little jar. Fill it up with the beans, and you can let it sit so that at Christmas time, you can gift that to people. Once the vanilla is all done and you're just left with the beans, you can then pull the beans out, let them completely dry, and then you can put them through a coffee grinder, and all of the powder that you get mixed with sugar. And now you have a vanilla sugar, which is incredible, dusted on cookies. Just a great way again to reuse those vanilla beans. Or you can take and chop them all up and right out of the bottle and make vanilla simple sugar or simple syrup to keep in the fridge so you can use that for your coffee. So the way that you would get vanilla syrup from a coffee shop that just sits, you can actually have the totally natural stuff just with sugar, water, and vanilla beans simmered on your stove and then strained and poured into a little jar in your fridge, and that will last for almost a month. So that's that one. I just loved. Bringing us to the stuffing. I would just eat stuffing at Thanksgiving if I could. Like I would just literally have a plate of stuffing with some gravy on it, and that would be that. This stuffing here is incredible because it's stovetop, super simple. You pack it all into your plate. It's got apples, it's got bacon. Beer is the secret ingredient. If you've never had beer in your stuffing, it is just the best addition. So you simmer all of your onions and what have you on the stove, your apples, your bacon, everything together with butter. And then in the bread, I will mix my sage and herbs. And then you pour the mixture that you had on the stove in there. And then you take about like a quarter to a half of a beer and pour that on top. And then you mix it through and then bake it. And chicken broth, I kind of will pour over top, let's say every 10 minutes or so until it gets that nice fluffy stuffing consistency. But the beer is like, if you never had it before, you have to try it. It's so, so good. And everybody says how delicious my stuffing is. I don't know if they're lying to me. I don't think they are. Next, another really a kind of obscure one is ginger beer. So ginger ale is okay in your Moscow mules and in your holiday drinks, but your own homemade ginger beer, just like the marshmallows, will blow that out of the water. It is so, so delicious. You can get the brewer's yeast from Bulk Barn. You don't need to buy a lot. You just buy a little bit. It's like you'll only need a couple of teaspoons at a time. This is so absolutely delicious and tasty. When you make a Moscow Mule with this, it'll absolutely blow your mind. This will sit and sort of start to ferment on the counter, and then you just put it into the fridge, and then it just stays, it's fermented. So it's kind of like a beer. It's gonna last a long time. Another great gift, another great hostess gift. If you put it in a beautiful jar, this one's from IKEA, you can bring that and gift it to somebody. Really, really cool things. And I think, and again, like lately, with overconsumption and having so much stuff, it's so lovely to get a gift that somebody made that has, you know, things that you can reuse, whether it's the vessel or whether it's a Cholula bottle. It's just a way to be more sustainable and to gift something that people really appreciate and take to heart without having to spend a whole lot of money, without, you know, going to HomeSense and just picking up, you know, more stuff that you don't know if someone's gonna like. Everybody likes homemade vanilla. Everybody will love this ginger beer, and everyone will love the mustard caviar. I already shared about that, so I'm not going to go over that again. Gingerbread. Okay, there's another one. Gingerbread cookies are one of those things, a lot of time you make them at Christmas and nobody eats them. You make them, you have one or two, and then you have, you know, a stack of gingerbread cookies because they're crisp. They get a little crispy really, really fast. And it's, again, it's kind of a polarizing flavor. This cookie here, which I made with a cookie mold, these are really, really cool as well, is a softer gingerbread, and then it has a cream cheese or cream cheese filling in between, which I piped on there. Again, really beautiful. I have a little gift bag here. I gifted these around to everybody. One cookie is sort of, it's got more of a cake vibe. It's almost like a gingerbread cookie cake. It's soft, and my kids and my husband absolutely adore them. Everyone who I've ever given one of these cookies, again, it's just really beautiful. So it's kind of impressive. It's kind of like a imperial cookie kind of vibe, you know, when you give it wrapped up just in a single, even with a beautiful bow. Really, really lovely, really easy to make. The secret to these ones is just lower baking time, which again is in the recipe. You can make a huge batch, make a few of these, and then use the same recipe for gingerbread cookies that are thinner and make them a little crispier. So you can actually have even if you wanted to gift like a cookie box, you could do this recipe and a whole bunch of other shapes, or use it for your kids to make, you know, gingerbread houses, little additions to your gingerbread houses with the same gingerbread for the edible part. Be very, very tasty. Okay. And then my last one that I'm going to go over is my this beautiful appetizer. And this is, again, I really love things that are simple, but that look really, really impressive. And so this one here has the blackberries. They're in a phyllo pastry, which were just baked inside of a little mini muffin tin and then loaded up with the filling afterwards. But the blackberries, I used dusting sugar and gold glitter and mix that together. And then you just take the blackberries a little bit, like they can be a little bit damp if it's not sticking, but typically if you pull them right out of the fridge, they sort of get condensation on them. You can roll them in that and they just look really beautifully sugared. This takes like no time at all. And with the little gold dust in there as well, it's just glittery and really, really perfect. I think this is excellent for a New Year's party. They're crispy. And again, it's one of the ones that doesn't matter if they stay really hot, which is really wonderful for entertaining. So that was that. And then talking back about how this all came about, and you know, the one story about the bread bowls is just one of the many wild and crazy days that I had creating all of the images for this book. I never really thought through how it was going to work to be cooking and styling and setting up and sort of being on the timeline for making this all come together. So I think that in hindsight, I probably would have cooked a lot of recipes and done all the photography a little bit slower than trying to write it and document and everything. So now if I'm going to write another book, you can be sure that it will not be done in 5 months' time, the way that this one was. Because also eating 5 months worth of holiday recipes condensed for a whole year was probably not the healthiest thing that I've ever done. Everything is, you know, rich. It's not something you want to be eating necessarily all the time, but it was a lot of fun. My family was super supportive of me. It was wild and crazy. Some of the tablescapes that you see, the Christmas one, was actually laid out on the floor. So a lot of the times when you see the tablescapes that are shot right from above, it's actually a tablecloth that's been laid out straight on my foyer floor. So the kids would be coming in, the dog would be coming around, no one was allowed on this tablescape. It was just actually pretty crazy. And it's funny to think that when you look at, let's say, Mother's Day, this is actually shot on my foyer floor. So the tablecloth is flat on the floor, and then the table settings are placed this way. And the reason for that is when you're on a dining room table, it's set up high, and then you have your light over top. So for me to get over top to shoot this, I actually went on my second floor. I have a catwalk sort of going across my house, and I shot over top from the catwalk onto the table settings. So it's kind of interesting to think about that, because you look at this and go, oh, it's actually, you know, such a beautiful table setting. That must have been so lovely in your house. And really, it was like my kids and husband and my dog going, get away from the tablescape. And then someone ring the doorbell and the dog would run through. But yeah, so that's just some BTS on exactly how it all went down. But all in all, just such a wonderful opportunity. I am so grateful to you all for joining me here and listening to me tell a little story about how this book came about and all of the recipes. And I'm looking forward to signing your copies and answering any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I think we can probably move on to the question and answer. I don't even know how long I talked for here.
So we do have around 10 minutes for questions. So if there are any questions up there, please feel free to raise your hand.
In the introduction, it was mentioned you have chickens. How many chickens is too many chickens?
Well, that answer will vary depending on the person you're talking to, because I know some people who have a lot of chickens. I think for me, it's going to be 10. I have 5 right now, and I went out this morning and I got 4 eggs, and I was very excited. I had 4 eggs, but I could see I'd like to have eggs again to gift, and I would like to have enough to be able to do all of my baking and all of my stuff with. So I think 10 chickens is the answer for me, but every chicken makes a mess. So 10 times that mess that one chicken makes in a day is, I think, at my maximum. That's it. You're testing me. He's gonna hold me to this. Yeah, he's got me on camera now saying this. That's what that was about.
And were there any other questions?
I think I answered it.
Yeah, the stuffing, will you put that inside the turkey?
So,
Or is it just stovetop?
well, you can absolutely take that recipe and put it inside the turkey. For us, like, we really love to smoke our turkeys. Dan always does our turkey on the smoker. And I feel like once we had turkey on the smoker, that was that. That's just the most delicious way to do it. And so one of the issues when you have stuffing is that you need to make sure the internal temperature is getting to be hot enough. And then depending on the bird, whether it's drier, whether it's a more moist bird, you can get stuffing that's really kind of soggy. So that's one reason. The other one is if you're hosting, again, a large group, the stuffing is something that you can get made in advance again and sort of just, get it fluffed up, add a little bit more chicken broth and pop it back in the oven. So I found that doing it stovetop is just so easy and it turns out perfectly every single time. In the recipe, another thing I do is 10 minutes before it's done, I baste the top with a clarified butter. So like melt your butter and just drizzle it on the top. And then you get this really beautiful crust on the top that's just golden brown. And everyone likes that part the best, right? You need the crunchy part of the stuffing, which doesn't come out of the turkey. So if that's that.
I'm Robyn's father-in-law, and we got to sample a lot of recipes in their book. One of my favorite was the beet pie.
The tart,
really talked
the
about.
galette.
Yeah. It was delicious.
So beets, again, it's like I have a few polarizing ingredients in this book where I feel like these recipes really made them shine. And that beet galette is, I don't even know, I think that's in Thanksgiving. It's really, again, it's really, really beautiful. That's another element too that I didn't really touch on. Each one of these recipes that I have in here, I tried to make sure that they were really beautiful as well as being really delicious. I can't find them. I'm gonna have to try. Christmas, is that the end? I want to find it. And here it is. So this is a galette, and typically galettes are usually made with fruit. You can do them with apple or with peaches, and really, really beautiful. But this one was with beets and goat cheese, and the goat cheese is kind of on underneath the beets as well. And it looks like this beautiful flour, but it just has this really lovely, like sweet, and the thyme, and with the pine nuts on the top, a little bit of crunch. I did toasted pine nuts, and the galette crust, which is the same pie crust that I have in the recipe book as well. Just all of the flavors together are really great, and everybody loved that beet. Yeah, the beet galette. It's less of a pie because the crust is really, really thin and flaky too, but it's a good one.
Hi, Robyn. Being one of the most creative people I know, even creative folks get inspired by others.
Yeah.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, I mean, I'm on Instagram a heck of a lot. So there is a ton of inspiration on there. That would be like, personal inspiration. I'm always leafing through. One thing I really think is important, being a creator, we're always putting our stuff out, from this book to whatever. I think it's really important not to copy other people. So anytime I see something that inspires me that somebody else has done, I always like to think, how can I do this different? So, if I saw a recipe that had, beets doing like let's say the pie, I'm like, I could do this as a galette. Oh, I could add these flavors. I could change this to try and sort of make that my own. So that's, if I'm getting inspiration from other things I'm seeing, other recipes I'm seeing, that's usually the first thing I think is like, how can I do something different with this that's going to be unique? The other thing I'm always inspired by is the season. So every time a new season comes, whatever it is that's, growing, whatever is fresh, whatever's on sale at the grocery store because it's in season, things I don't typically use, I really find a lot of inspiration in that as well. And then I like to take those elements and sort of, multiply them around. So if I was doing something with beets, and you'll see that in the book as well, if those are the colors, then I'm going to tie that into my decor, and I'm going to tie that same vibe into everything else. So I think that, nature and the seasons are definitely, every time a new season comes along, it's my favorite season. Except this one.
I agree.
We do have time for one more question. If anyone has one.
It's okay if no one has a question. I talked a lot.
Well, if there are no more questions, I'll turn things over to Robyn if you have any closing comments at all, and then I'll go over signing procedure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again. I just want to thank all of you for being here and everyone who's supported me getting this book created, from my publisher, Rock Point, through Quarto. Really, really amazing experience. I learned so much and I had so much fun, and I've gotten to connect with so many people, and I'm just really, really grateful.
So we will be moving along to the signing portion of the meeting now. So in just a moment, we'll ask Robyn to take her place behind this table, and feel free to line up. Feel free to have a copy of the book signed before you pay for it as well too. There's no need to rush back and forth, but we would appreciate it if you paid for the book. We're so very grateful to Rock Point Books, of course, to Robyn Chubey for this evening, and to all of you for joining us. Please give another very warm round of applause.
That was lovely. Yes. Right. So what are you most excited for?